Hello, everyone. Welcome to Module 2's live Q&A session for Tech for Good, the role of ICT in achieving the SDGs. This week's expert session will be with José Clastornik, Chief Executive of Advocacy, the Uruguayan National Agency for E-Government and Information Society under the Office of the President. I am Julie, and I will be moderating this 30-minute session. We have had some great questions this week and have selected a few for José to answer. Would you mind introducing yourself, José?
Thank you, Julie. My name is José Clastornik. I am the Executive Director of an e-government agency in Uruguay that it's in the Presidency of the Republic. I have a lot of years doing this, I think, so perhaps I can give you a little advice with my experience.
That sounds perfect. Okay. My computer's freezing for a second. There we go. Okay, so one student asks, what role should the private sector play in establishing e-government policy and practices, and what should government, civil society, and other stakeholders do to involve or even mandate the cooperation of the private sector? Do you have any good examples from Uruguay or elsewhere in the world?
Okay. There are a lot of experience related to this. I think for industry experts, chambers of commerce, IT specialists to join together and help the governments in their policies and practices. Thinking in two ways, we have a lot of council groups and working groups related to some institutional development, for example, for privacy and data protections, for access to public information. For each regulatory unit, you have a council that is helping them, or working groups when you are working with some specific things as using just spatial data, and you need the specialists and these kind of things. When you speak about, for example, now of open government and open government initiatives, it's difficult to think on limits between the government space and the private space. You are opening your space. You are using the collaboration, cooperation, co-creation. So it's very natural to think different kinds of interactions. For example, when you are speaking about a public procurement, for example, public procurement for innovation, change the way a public sector acquires something. For example, instead of saying, I need this that has this size and this materials, whatever it is, you say, okay, I need something to solve this problem. And you let the private innovation to help you define the thing you're buying. So I think it's so open now that it's difficult not to think a place for private sector helping. We speak about innovation labs for co-creation. You speak about working groups. For example, we have in the National Electronic and Medical Record project or initiative. We have a working group defining the way you use the data in order to protect the privacy of the information you're working on. And there are a lot of different views on how you use the privacy, because it's the consumer, it's the patient, it's the institution that has some information related to the patient that perhaps they don't want to share with the patient. So you must put together all the people in order for them to share their views and have a common understanding on how to manage information. So I think we can't think now in digital government without the private sector working together. It's impossible by now.
Okay, so you just discussed how there should be standards for privacy in terms of public and private partnerships for governance. And once you actually Estonia made an argument following its restrictions from the Soviet Union to enact reforms that modernized the country into the digital age and has been a world pioneer in e-governance. So this person asks, should there be global minimum standards on what is considered good e-governance for the citizen? And are there other examples from around the world that provide inspiration?
Okay, there are a lot of international spaces where regulation is in a way given. Trying to think about this, you have the OECD working on digital government, you have the ITU and the OAS, the American organization, working on standards for cybersecurity, actually maturity models and some kind of frameworks for defining what are the best practices for cybersecurity. You have the European Union working on privacy and data protection. Actually, they do have two things. It's now something that you can hear in the news. You have the General Data Protection Regulation, the new one after 20 years. You have the Council of Europe with the 108 convention or agreement. For example, in the OAS, you have like model laws related to access to public information. You do have some things on work now also on privacy and data protection. So I think you can find examples of whatever you want to speak in each region. When we began, we took some best practices in the world and we tried to take their knowledge. For example, privacy data protection, we took Spain, and access to public information in the region, there was Mexico. Related to digital identity, we took Estonia. And now we are working together with some of the countries. There is a digital nations groups of 7 countries with Estonia, England, Canada, South Korea, Israel, New Zealand, and Uruguay, working together to have some common frameworks and to share some knowledge to use it and exchange all the best practices that we can deliver.
Okay, so thank you for that. So you addressed how privacy can be addressed in many of the OECD countries or in the European countries, for example. But one learner asks, while they are a fan of digital government, big fan of digital government in principle, isn't it only really beneficial when the government itself can be trusted? And this learner asks, wouldn't a more radical and decentralized approach like distributed ledgers be a smarter solution for the citizens of many countries with corrupt and illegitimate leadership?
It's a tricky question. Yeah. I think we must take into account that there are some values like sovereignty and the legal value that is not easy to take this radical approach. Usually also you must take into account that there are different criteria between the countries, there are different approach and judgments between the different legal frameworks. For example, if you take, we continue speaking about privacy and data protection. There's an European approach more related to human rights, and an American approach more related to consumer rights. So you get very different views in some judgments or some things. So it's not easy to say, okay, I take something international, exactly this, and this will go well for the country. Also, when thinking about, for example, different approaches, like thinking with a private sector way of thinking, you must know that, for example, in the private sector, usually you assume you can do whatever is not forbidden. But usually in the countries and more in the Hispanic and Latin American countries, it's not explicitly allowed in the government. You're not, there is no value in what you can't do it. So you need in our legal framework to enforce the right to do this before the institution do this. So one can think of blockchain like killing the needs of the registered entities. But before doing this, and it will happen in a way, someone must say, okay, how many ledgers, distributed ledgers, we do have to be in sync in order to say this is a register that is valid, or which are the technical characteristics of each ledger to be accepted as part of the distributed ledger. So in a way, things can be made. There will be a lot of technology that will change everything in the times to come. But to have legal value, you must think how to enforce this in your legal framework. And this is part of the change management that you need to take into account when you are designing a digital policy for the country.
Okay, thank you. So one of our learners online wants to respond to that and say, how can civil society organizations participate in governance issues in developing organizations and countries like Bangladesh?
Can you again repeat the question? Sorry, because I missed
absolutely.
The sound.
How can civil society organizations participate in governance issues in developing countries like Bangladesh?
Okay, I haven't been in Bangladesh, but I think you must approach the government in order to make the real connections that allows you to find as a civil society the ways that your participation gives value to the government, and the government feels you as a partner for the endeavor that they are doing. So when you create this kind of liaison, this kind of trust, they will see the civil organizations as part of the value chain of the digital government. I think we must try to develop an ecosystem, and everyone must have in their mind that we are working in an ecosystem. So one must approach the other in order to integrate him or it to the ecosystem. And usually government officials are going to this kind of international meetings that the international organizations we were speaking they do. So they do know about open government. They do know that it's good to have some kind of councils or cooperation or co-creation. So I think you should find the ways to understand which are the people that already know this and which are the ways of showing your value as part of the social of the civil society in order to create the bonds to make it work together.
Okay, thank you. And one other person also who's online right now asks, how can we join this initiative and share your ideas, program, and vision? We all want to share knowledge and best practices. So how can people get involved?
There are a lot of places. I think if you go to the Open Government Partnership initiatives, you will find it. Next one will be, the last one was 1 month ago in Georgia, in Tbilisi. Next one will be in Ottawa. There are thousands of people joined together to speak about these experiences and the way that they can join forces. They can develop this multi-stakeholder environment, this ecosystem that I'm speaking. I think whenever you are trying to contact the people in the digital government or the open government initiatives in your country, and try to make the bonds to join forces with them, try to be in the events. Usually they organize some local events related to the things we are speaking. So try to find the local, regional, or world events that allows you to find the places where you can work. There are a lot of things. Just Google the name hackathon in your country and you will find a lot of ways where people are working together with the government to prove ideas or develop some new initiatives together.
Okay, well, that sounds good to me. So we have one learner who asked before, how can digital government advocacy groups set the agenda in developing countries where basic services are not fulfilled?
Of course, the basic services must be enforced before speaking some kind of things. But think about this. There is one basic thing that is needed, that is the identity. If you want to have some social help, if you want to go to a state hospital, whatever it is, you need to be identified. Really the first thing from a social perspective, and it's the same from digital government, is to have an ID, to have a digital identity. So the difference in digital government is you think about it in digital terms, but you must be identified. You must be identified to be in the system. If you are out of the system, you don't have any benefits. So that's the first thing, and this is the vertebral column to everything that comes afterwards. The second thing is we usually think about digital services sitting in a town or sitting in a city where you don't value the social value that some digital services have. Think about a person who is hundreds of miles from a place where he can have a doctor, or where she can have, I don't know, education. So it means a really social value that you can get in contact with someone and have a doctor on the other side speaking in the way we're speaking now, and having an answer, a first answer that can bring something to know if there is something urgent, or if something that is not so urgent, and it doesn't, or she doesn't have to move 500 miles to a place where someone must see a person. Think about countries that you have snow and 6 months inside the house and you can't get out of the house. So think in a different scenario, and you will find think about people that can educate with a technology that today is not like 20 years ago. You have a smartphone, you have connectivity in places that didn't have phone. From now they have cellulars, each person. Statistics that defined digital inclusion 20 years ago are different from the ones that we have now. So I think that we must, there are some things that are basic. You must drink water, you must eat something, but don't think that digital services is something like that goes outside the scope of the social policy. I think going digital gives you equity. We think about digital services in terms of equity, and equity is social value always. So I do understand the question. I do agree that there are some basic things that must be given before speaking for others, but don't think digital services is something that is not social. I think different. Digital services is one of the best social values that you can give, because it gives equity, but you must think about this in terms of the whole population, the whole country, the whole places.
Okay, so as a follow-up to that, somebody online asks, there are a lot of studies regarding technology enhancing and improving life quality in diverse populations. What would be the best strategy to engage those strategies?
I'm not sure if I understand well. I can take our examples. I don't. I'm not very sure about the question. If you can say it again.
The person asks, there are a lot of studies regarding technology enhancing and improving life quality in diverse populations. What would be the best strategy to engage those technologies?
Okay. Let me take the examples that I wanted to give you. Speaking about equity, we give a laptop to every child and a laptop to every retiree. We took the Negropontes project, one laptop per child, as a national project, and we accomplished this in 4 or 5 years. By that time, I'm speaking, I think, 10 years ago, it was an equity program because we made that the poorest quintile actually were equal to the richest quintile in terms of technology appropriation. Okay, 10 years ago, if you look at the figures of how much computers have the richest and how much computers the poorest have. The richest have, I don't know, 5 times better, 5 times the quantity of computers that the ones that were in the poorest quintile. We gave a computer to every child, not in every family, to every child. So by the 3rd or 4th year, the poorest families had more computers than the richest families, because usually they had more children in the house. And the same happened with the access to internet. The lowest quintile was used 1% of internet, had a 1% usage of internet. By I think the 8th year or something like this, they were equal to the usage of the richest quintile. When they defined the plan to give tablets to the eldest, to the retirees, this was the only sector that were not at the highest level of usage of internet, and giving computers, laptops to them made us to have practically an equity between ages, wellness, sex, location. For us, you take all the graphics and are practically even. So this is one thing, but this is only access to technology. There's another thing that is usage. How do you make them take value of the things they have in hand? And I think each country has its killer applications, let's say, the killer application as the driver of the usage. There are countries that the usage of cell phones were driven by money interchange, or of course the networks, the social networks was the killer application 5 years, 10 years ago. We found some good applications for the retirees related to some services that they had in pre-arranged in the tablets. Of course, looking at the family in Facebook is also a killer application for the retirees. So I think you do have to analyze your country situation. You do have to have a plan, and you must develop the plan and make it happen.
Okay, thank you. And I think we're just going to take one last question. So one learner asked, how do you incentivize people to use digital services or even digital channels for political participation? And how do you reach those who probably need it the most? For example, the elderly and those who live in rural communities.
Okay, the elders, I already told you in a way. How do you engage people? We are working from the beginning. For example, we're trying to engage the students with the laptops, to use them with games that allows them to begin this journey to digital use of the tablets. We are using them to make their labor in school. We are using them to teach them how to use it, taking care of their privacy and data protection. 2 days ago, we have, like each year, we have a a prize to the schools that have the best projects related to the usage of the computers. So this time they had to make some posters and some things related to this. Also, this gives some kind of incentive for the students and for the teachers and we get prizes and this kind of things. This is with the smallest, with the youngest public that we have. Thinking about others, you must engage them by public participation. For example, usually the first things that you do is public consultation related to some kind of local problems. For example, budget participation, initiatives for the budget at the local city. You can use the cell phones to make some claims related to things that are not working well in your neighborhood. So I think it's something that you must give to each group, something that they feel the value, they feel that are part of the community, and they engage in activities. And this is something that it must not be something that is like one thing 1 year. It's something that you must give more and more in order for the culture to be inside the person, and when thinking about being part of the community, think in digital terms. Think that you can engage by making a comment. For example, all the digital services must have a way that you can say what you think about the project, the service. You can engage in the quality of the services by working together in co-creation, or by giving your opinion when the service, when you finish using the services. So I think you must think how they will be part of the game in every part of the places that you can think and put a place in the process where the people can engage in your process.
Okay, thank you so much. So I think we're going to end this session now, but we really want to thank you again for having this session with us, Jose.
No, thank you very much, Julie, and nothing. It's always a pleasure to answer questions related to this kind of things.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.